thousands of hours here at the school while this was being reconstructed. So that is great value to the district, and and thank you for your countless insightful views on topics on the board meetings too. So I'd like to that one's yours.
Thank you both. Oh, found this one. Thank you both. Is this on? No. Better? Great. So thank you both to Faith and Andrew. I also wanted to acknowledge Dick Wright, the school board representative from Newberry, who couldn't be with us this evening or this morning because of a medical issue. We wish him our best, and he's in our thoughts.
So I will begin by reading Article 1, and then that will be followed by Ken Bartholomew giving some background on that article. Article 1, to see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate the Municipal Budget Committee's recommended amount of $45,069,217 for the support of schools, for the payment of salaries of the school district officials and agents, and for the payment for the statutory obligations of the district. School board recommends $45,069,217 as well. This article does not include appropriations voted in other warrant articles. This warrant article asks the voters to raise and appropriate for the support of schools, the salaries of school district officials and agents, and for the statutory obligations of said district, and to authorize the application against said appropriation of such sums as are estimated to be received from the state sources, together with other income, the school board to certify to the selectmen of each of the towns of Bradford, New London, Newbury, Springfield, Sutton, Warner, and Wilmot the amount to be raised by taxation by said towns. School board recommends 7-0. MBC recommends 7-0. My guess is a lawyer wrote that. So a lawyer can speak to it now.
So the 2020-21 operating budget proposed by the Kearsarge Regional School Board of $45,069,217 is an increase of approximately, or exactly, $1,367,054. That's 3.13% from this current year's budget. The areas of increase within the operating budget are a result of a variety of diverse factors that are explained below, that I will explain now. In summary, the majority of the budget increase in this year falls into three categories: wages, health benefit premiums, and other payroll benefits. Those three items account for $1.5 million of the increase. So we've actually had a decrease in other items. So first is wages and fringe. The requested budget for 2021 reflects a net increase of 3.72 teacher full-time equivalents. Here is what we added: 1 full-time equivalent for an elementary school nurse, 1.33 or 1 1/3 full-time equivalents for elementary social workers, and 1.39 FTE adjustments for elementary math, drama, ELO, guidance, and literary support staff. In addition, there's an added SAU staff member for facilities support, as well as dollars for special education tutors assisting the NECC program at the high school. As a result, the wage line for employees requires an increase of approximately $777,044, or 57% of the budget increase. This includes contractual obligations for the KREA educators that were voted on and approved by voters. That's the teacher contract in previous budget ballots. That amount of the $777,000, $412,000 of that is for the increases already voted on with the contract approval. Health benefits represent 40% of the budget increase, or $548,575. Included under other payroll benefits are dental, life, long-term disability, the New Hampshire retirement system contributions, workers' comp insurance, taxes, workshops, and tax-sheltered annuities. The overall other payroll benefits increase represents 13.45% of the total budget increase, or $183,856. Next category is out-of-district costs. The out-of-district costs for the 2021 school year are estimated to be a reduction of $195,000, or negative 14% of the budget decrease at this point in time. Each year, out-of-district special education costs are very fluid, and they're driven by a variety of factors. Those factors include the ability of our local staff to meet the needs of intensive behaviorally or medically challenged students, families who move into or out of the district, and the costs associated with delivering highly specialized services in environments outside of the district whose costs keep on rising. We make every attempt to meet each child's needs in the least restrictive educational environment here at the local level. There are, however, times when the child's special needs exceed our local capacity to meet them. In addition, federal law requires us to provide for those needs until the age of 21. Placement for out-of-district services can range from $50,000 per student to upwards of $300,000, depending on the residential requirements. Next category is other operating costs. In this area are included things like textbooks, technology, contracted services, supplies, repairs, equipment, replacement equipment, capital improvements, new equipment, furniture, dues and fees, printing, telephone, copiers, assessments, just about everything else. These costs reflect a decrease of about 2% of the total, or $28,000. Other expenses, transportation represents an increase of $42,000, $42,258, or about 3% of the increase. And utilities, bonds, property insurance increased by approximately 4%, or $54,587. Food service is a reduction of $22,000 of the budget decrease. Federal funds represents about $6,000. Note, all federal dollars appropriated are offset by matching federal funds, so the result has no effect on the local tax rate for the federal dollars. As a team of dedicated educational leaders, our vision remains to create and maintain a nationally competitive school system with engaged and enthusiastic learners, innovative and dedicated staff, and in a supportive and involved community. We continue to strive for high standards, honor differentiated learning, create positive climate and culture conditions, communicate with transparency, and conduct ourselves in a professional manner committed to being fiscally responsible stewards of community resources. So you can see there's then in the handout, there's a chart that shows the different categories and what represents increases to the budget. And then on the next page, it shows the category of how the increase is broken out by different categories, pluses and minuses.
All right, thank you, Ken. Are there any people who would like to address a question either to Ken or to another board member, or make a comment about the budget? If so, if you could come up to the one of the two microphones.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Sarah Anderson from Springfield. Ken, can you tell me what NECC stands for?
Here, let's take this one.
NECC is New England Center for Children. That is a special program at the high school that we started this year.
Thank you.
Special education.
The question was, what does NECC stand for? Anyone else with a question or a comment? All right, hearing none, we will.
Martha Hunt Sutton. I'm concerned about the increase. I'm never sure whether I should feel reassured that the recommendation by the school board and the municipal budget committee is the same or not. I'm inclined to feel less reassured. It would be helpful to me to know a little bit about the rationale for the staffing increases, since they account for the majority of the increase. Being a former elementary school principal, I can make some guesses, but they'd be totally speculative. So I would appreciate some more information about that.
Sure. First, let me correct that. The increase in wages and fringe, the new positions are not a majority of those. Of the 777,000 increase for wages and fringe, 412,000 of that are contractually obligated increases from the KREA contract that the voters already approved 2 years ago? Last year, sorry. Seems like a long year. So it's not quite the majority, but the 3.72% or 3.72 FTEs added, we'll address those one by one. But before that, I wanted to just describe the process a little bit so people know what we go through with regard to coming up with the budget numbers. First, administration develops a draft budget with input from all the different administrative leaders and school building principals. They present that to the board and the municipal budget committee together in 2 joint meetings that occur in September. Those meetings are long. They have a lot of questions. Each principal presents their budget and goes over all the large increases or decreases. We always ask questions. Then the next meeting that we have, each of the directors of administration present, so the technology director, the facilities director, special education director. Am I missing? And then the district budget from our business manager. So that that's how we come up with the budget, and then we have deliberations on those separately, the MBC separately from the school board. We found that the joint presentations are very helpful because we can hear the other group's concerns, the other group's questions, and we hear the same answers to both. So that's how we come up with the budget. And specifically, the questions about the 3.72 added FTEs. Do you want to address those, Winfried?
In our deliberations and our recommendations, some of those staff increases are required because of special education programming. For example, the school nurse you see is it's a full-time position that our special education director has brought forward as a need, as an obligation that we have to programming for students with special needs at the elementary level. Those are, when those decisions are made, those are very comprehensive decisions, and it really requires the board and the district to provide those resources if we want to pursue our course of having as many children in our district as possible rather than sending them out of district. So there is a mix of required and then more programmatic decisions. We also had extensive discussions with both the facilities, with the school board as well as the municipal budget committee regarding the increasing reports from our principals, particularly at the elementary level, with regards to mental health needs that are coming into our schools, from needs that children bring on the behavioral side and readiness to learn because of family pressures, society's pressures, and other forces that we can't be immune from. So the board and the MBC actually approached the administration with a request and suggestion to add a social work position for the elementary level. We have had a social worker slash licensed drug and alcohol counselor at the high school for many years. We had a part-time position in social work at the middle school, where we had a retirement last summer, and the board was, again, responsive to our request to make that a full-time position and devote 1 or 2 days to the elementary needs. In our budget discussions, there was a clear indication that this is not sufficient, because to send one person around 4 schools and to address the significantly increased needs that children have allowed us only to really limit that to 5th graders and smooth the transition. So that's where the proposal was added for a elementary dedicated social worker. We have the other positions you see is there was you sit in a wonderful auditorium here where we have for years tried to nurture the arts and the performing arts, and have done this with stipends and have done this with trying to create more coursework for high schoolers to investigate and learn about drama, the technical as well as the literary aspects of that. So the board again was responsive to our attempts to recreate and reintroduce a drama and performing arts program at the high school, where there is really just beginnings, and we have stipended positions to perform plays and musicals, but we felt really to make this a focus and dedicate a part-time position to build the program. And that's why you see the last entry there, high school ELO, extended learning opportunity / drama, as a 3-day position or a 0.6 position part-time at this point, to see and to build the interest and respond to kids that some of them have to go to Concord right now to learn about drama and performing arts and staging, which in this facility we should be able to accommodate that. So that again, it's a student need that we have addressed to some extent, but inadequately, and that's where the decision came in to do that, and build the program and look at that position as an addition to the high school. Reading and math continuously are issues that we try to improve, and with our elementary schools, we had to share positions. Time gets lost in travel, and we felt that beefing up those incrementally will be of advantage to our elementary schools. We heard from our principal at Warner that math, we have a shared math position, math specialist position. Kids struggle with math, and to have that as a full-time position would alleviate many of those, the wasted time. It still takes a half hour to get from one place to another, get all set up. And that was a decision that we felt will help us in the future with improving those academic scores. So that's in a broad brush, the increases.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions or comments about Article 1? All right, hearing none, I will move us on to Article 2, which Article 2, to see if the school district will vote to approve the cost item included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Kearsarge Regional School Board and the para-educators at Kearsarge, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits. 2021 year, estimated increase $279,009. Following year, $86,622. Year after that, 2022 to 2023, $84,636. And further to raise and appropriate the sum of $279,009 for the 2020-2021 fiscal year, such sum representing the additional costs attributable to the increase in salaries and benefits required by the new agreement over those that would be paid at current staffing levels. Recommended by both the school board and the municipal budget committee without dissent. And I would ask B.B. Hammond Casey to address that.
Pass that one down.
There we go. Try
It's
it
on
again.
now? Okay, good morning. The school board and the para-educators at Kearsarge, which Peak, have reached an agreement on a 3-year contract for 2020 through 2023. The proposed agreement continues to provide competitive salary increases and benefits for para-educators covered under the collective bargaining agreement. In particular, the contract contains the following significant components. First, in recognition of varying intensities of student needs and increasing staff training requirements, the new CBA creates 2 groups of para-educators. One comprises all instructional and special education paras. The other includes intensive needs paras and nurse assistants. Separate pay scales apply to those 2 groups. The length of the workday was increased from 6.8 hours to 7 hours for intensive needs paraeducators. An unpaid lunch break replaces the previously paid lunch period. All Peak members will be provided with 2 professional development and training days during the contract year in exchange for work time made up individually on 2-hour delayed opening days. The district's contribution to the health insurance plan increases for the 2-person and family plans over the next 3 years from 70% to 80% for a 2-person and from 65% to 75% for a family. And lastly, the CBA will no longer contain specific job descriptions. Any questions?
Are there any questions or comments about Article 2?
Sarah Anderson, Springfield. Hi, Phoebe.
Morning.
Are you able to explain to me what or who determines an intensive need para versus a special ed para?
I'll defer to you.
Sarah, as you know, we've developed various programs that are allowing kids to stay in district that have behavioral, autistic, multi-handicapped kids in their purview. Those programs require more intensive training. So if we have openings there, if we have kids placed in those programs, we offer these positions or hire for those positions. And now there's a clear understanding that when you go there, your day is longer, incrementally longer, but it covers it from start to finish. And we need to expect more training. You need to commit to be with and dedicate yourself to more intensive needs. That was an intensive discussion to really have those 2 groups, whereas other people feel more talented and more drawn towards being in the classroom, supporting with reading, behavioral needs, attention needs. So it's just a different kind of job description, a different job need, and we had difficulty recruiting for the more intensive need programs. So that's where the pay differential comes in for these 2 groups and the clearly delineated expectations.
I understand. I have one more question. I wonder what the school district's policy is on allowing paraeducators to participate in student IEP meetings at school. I myself have heard conflicting information about whether they are invited or not, and simply a comment. I feel that if we are increasing the wages of these paras because they are extremely valuable, their input is critical at individual education meetings for students, and I hope that's something that the school district thinks about and that they begin to invite and include paras in the IEP meetings. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments regarding Article 3? All right. Hearing none, I will.
She has one.
I'm Celeste Cook from New London. I'm concerned about the fact that they're going to have an unpaid lunch. I mean, how much time is that, and why did you take that away?
Good question. The work time previously of 6.8 hours in some of our schools, like the high school, did actually not cover the whole student day, with a paid lunch period in the middle where we didn't have coverage. So we looked at different solutions to make sure that our employees, our paraprofessionals, when assigned to kids, have an opportunity to be with the kids the whole day. By making an unpaid lunch period of 30 minutes, we were able to tack on 15 minutes each, roughly, on both ends. So the actual work and earn time did not change. The length of day was increased by half an hour. And that was decided upon through negotiations and arguments back and forth, and that's where we end up with. So there's no loss of income for the people that work in those positions, and that was important to all of us. It was a decision made really in order to cover all the services that we need to cover for the kids, rather than hire additional personnel to do that.
Is there a dollar amount attached to that?
There's no dollar amount attached to that part of it because, again, the length of time people are in the school increased by that lunch period, but the amount earned is the same as before, plus the increases and negotiated increases.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments regarding Article 2? All right, hearing none, I will move on to Article 3, to see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate up to $25,000 to be placed in the Special Education Expendable Trust Fund established in 2008 within the provisions of RSA 198:20C for the purpose of emergency funding of unforeseen special education costs incurred by the district, with such amount to be funded from unassigned fund balance or surplus funds remaining on hand as of June 30, 2020. Both the school board and the MBC recommended that without dissent. And I would ask Ms. Meston to speak to that article warrant.
Good morning. This is working. In 2008, the voters established an expendable trust fund for the purpose of providing funds for unforeseen emergency circumstances in special education that may arise in a year after the budget has already been adopted. If approved, this article will add up to $25,000 to that fund from operating surplus remaining on hand as of June 30th, 2020. The balance of the fund as of December 2019 is approximately $280,043. The target amount to be raised is $372,139.
Any questions or comments regarding that article?
I'm having trouble understanding, the special ed budget has decreased, correct? And this is a whole separate account or budget. I have a hard time wrapping myself around how a special ed budget can decrease or even have surplus at the end of a year, but yet we're also raising money to appropriate special ed funds for some time down the road. Just a comment, concern.
All right, thank you.
I'll address that comment. It's difficult to budget a year in advance or over a year in advance for needs that are going to be occurring in the future. We don't think it's fiscally responsible to base special education budget on possible move-ins, changes in circumstances, et cetera. So at the time that the budget is set and debated and set, so for example, this budget, this last fall, we based it on recommendations from the special needs administrator on what currently exists in the district, okay? So we don't want to raise and appropriate funds from the voters for additional potential move-ins, for example. That just doesn't make sense to us. We base it on what we've got now. That's the best we can do, really, because we don't know. These are unknown unknowns, as it's said. But as we know, there are changes that occur. Sometimes those changes result in surpluses. Someone moves out, someone graduates. They take into account planned graduations, but we don't know necessarily what's going to happen. Sometimes it works to the district's benefit and we end up with a surplus in special needs. It can also result in a surplus in transportation costs. Other times we don't have that. If it's a surplus, the money goes into the surplus and gets expended either through these warrant articles or returned to the towns. If it's a deficit, we either have to have a special meeting to appropriate additional funds during the school year because the budget's already been set, or we can have these special education trust funds that allow us to take money out of those trust funds in order to cover those expenses during the school year where the budget's already been set. So that's the reason that we have these trust funds. It's because we can err on the side of surpluses, but we really can't err on the side of deficits without these, unless we have special meetings. And I think if people who've been in the district long enough do recall, over a decade ago, we had a situation where the special needs budget got blown out of the water during the school year. We had to have a hiring freeze and a supply purchasing freeze as of September of the school year, and no one wanted to do that again. That's what led to the establishment, in my understanding, because I wasn't on the board at the time, of this special education needs trust fund. It's a good question, though.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Margaret Duty from Wilmette. How'd you come up with the 372,139 as a target? What does that represent?
Trying to remember. So that target is set by the Audit and Fiscal Committee of the board. We set a target for all of the trust funds, and trying to remember how we came up with that one. It's based on a discussion of what the expected outsized needs would be based on average costs and move-ins, and then it comes out to an odd number because of, I think, changes in the value of the fund. So we do it on a percentage basis, and then that comes out to an odd number when we apply it to what's in there.
So how many students would this cover?
Well, it depends. It could cover 2 students. It could cover 10 students. It depends on what the needs of the students are during the school year.
What's the average cost per special ed student in the district?
I don't have that number per student.
Do you have a range?
What I can tell you is that this number here can represent probably 1.5 students in a very specialized placement. And I've had placements that are in excess of $300,000 by the time you do residential component as well as transportation. Transportation oftentimes is almost as much, if it's a day placement, as is the actual placement cost. So this is a prudent number. It's not an exaggerated number, I think. It probably came from, I wasn't around at the time, but it looks like from the size, probably provisions for 2 more intensive programs that couldn't be accommodated in the district. That would be my guess.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sue Russell, Newbury. Very, very quickly, I think that is a very important article. And it's just a very quick little thing where my sister moved to a small town up north. She had a special needs, that's my niece. And what happened, because she moved mid-year, right? They were having their town meeting. This happened right before their town meeting, right? And they had to tell the voters, we have to do an increase. They didn't have anything like this. They had to do it right then. Tell the voters, we have an increase in our school budget. So, I mean, it's a great thing to have.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address Article 3? All right, hearing no one, I will move on to Article 4 to see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate up to $50,000 to be placed in the school buildings maintenance fund for the purpose of repair, unanticipated utility costs, and maintaining the school buildings and equipment, with such amount to be funded from unassigned fund balance or surplus funds remaining on hand as of June 30, 2020. Both the school board and the MBC recommended that without dissent. And Emilio Canciobello.
In 2009, the voters established an expendable trust fund for the purpose of repairs, unanticipated utility costs, and maintaining school buildings and equipment. If approved, this article will set aside up to $50,000 towards the purpose from the operating surplus funds remaining on hand as of June 30, 2020. The balance of this fund as of December 2019 is approximately $445,784, and the target is $50,236. I'm sorry? Okay. All right. A little more. Any questions?
Any questions or comments regarding Article 4? All right, well, that concludes the business of this meeting. Do I hear a... Yes, thank you. You must be a KRHS graduate. I'll leave that one alone then. So, motion to adjourn, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Ayes have it, the meeting is adjourned. See you approximately 1 year from today. You think we did break the record?
I think we did 45 minutes last night.
The record? Gosh, I was thinking this was faster than last